The word about life comes from Luke chapter 8. It is one of the miracle stories that we are familiar with, and the tendency is, because we are so familiar with it, is often to turn off and only half listen. And I encourage you to be aware of that and try not to do that. I've proposed for a long time that Shadow Rock is a Christian fellowship defined by Jesus, but not confined by Jesus. So over the years, the Word about Life has come to us from secular readings as well as readings from other world religions in addition to the Bible. And there is great freedom in being human and great freedom in being a progressive Christian. And this freedom also allows us to circle back around from time to time to revisit the central personality and story of our faith. And this is what we are doing in this time of Lent through our study with Journey of the Spirit. Today's word about life comes from Luke's radical good news of God's power and God's love. The main themes moving through this story that I want you to listen for are: one, there is power in our words and in our story, individually and as a community. Two, inclusion of the other is the right thing to do. No matter who you are or where you are on life's journey, you are welcome here, no matter how messy it gets. And it gets messy. And three, God's intention for all people and all creation is health and wholeness. According to Luke, if your view of Jesus does not include power, if it does not include healing, if it does not include inclusion, then you really do not know the Jesus of the Christian tradition. So let's read the word about life. Then they, Jesus and the disciples, arrived at the country of Gerasenes, which is opposite Galilee, in an area of 10 cities known as the Decapolis. And this area was the furthest, most eastern boundary of the Roman Empire, and most of these cities were mostly influenced by Greek and Roman culture. As he stepped out on land, a man of the city who had demons met him. For a long time he had worn no clothes, and he did not live in a house, but in and among the tombs. And when he saw Jesus, he fell down before him and shouted at the top of his voice, "What have you to do with me, Jesus, Son of the God, Most High God? I beg you, do not torment me." For Jesus had commanded the unclean spirit to come out of the man. For many times it had seized him. He was kept under guard and bound with chains and shackles, but he would break the bonds and be driven by the demon into the wilds. Jesus then asked him, "What is your name?" He said, "Legion," for many demons had entered him. A legion is a Roman army unit of about 5,000 to 6,000 men. And the name is a metaphor, not a literal number, which speaks of the scale of the possession. And also, I do not think it's an accident that the name of an occupying, life-destroying evil is named after an occupying, life-destroying government. The readers of this story, the hearers of this story, they would make that connection. Legion begged him not to order them to go back into the abyss. In the worldview of that time, there are layers of seen and unseen layers of the world, spiritual and physical. And the abyss is a reference to a worldview where these several seen and unseen layers of reality, one of which is the abyss, was the place where disobedient spirits were imprisoned. Now there on the hillside, a large herd of swine was feeding, and the demons begged Jesus to let them enter these rather than go into the abyss. After all, for a Jew who is telling the story, perhaps, and hearing the story, swine had no value. To a Jewish Christian audience, they would be delighted and would find it quite funny. So he gave the demons permission. Again, Jesus has the authority in every level of the seen and unseen world. Then the demons came out of the man and entered the swine, thinking they were safe. But even the pigs could not stand the suffering of such a possession. And the herd rushed down the steep bank into the lake and was drowned. When the swineherds, that is the Gentile pig shepherds, saw what had happened, they ran off and told the story in the city and in the country. And then people came out to see what had happened, and when they came to Jesus, they found the man from whom the demons had gone sitting at the feet of Jesus, clothed, in his right mind. And they rejoiced at the healing and turn of good fortune for the man. No, that's not what it says. Instead, what it says is, and they were afraid. Those who had seen it told everyone else how the one who had been possessed by demons had been healed. Then all the people of the surrounding country of the Gerasenes asked Jesus not to stay, but to leave them, for they were seized with great fear. So, Jesus took a deep breath, and he sighed, and he got into the boat, and he returned back across the lake to Galilee. The man whom the demons had gone begged that he might be with him. He might stay with Jesus, but Jesus sent him away, saying, "Return to your home and declare how much God has done for you." So the man made whole went away, proclaiming throughout the city how much Jesus had done for him. Please pray with me. O God, the Spirit of life and love, O bond between us, between all people, between me and this congregation. May I say something of value. May there be a word of healing. May there be a word of encouragement. I trust you will do your work among us. Amen. So Peg and I, one time we were driving down a country road, and we weren't talking. We weren't talking because we had a discussion. And the discussion led to an argument. And she was being very stubborn and would not concede that I was right. And so we keep driving, and then we drive past this farm, and then on this farm are all this livestock in a great big pen of pigs. And I say, "Relatives of yours?" And she raised her one eyebrow at me, as you know she can. And she said, "Yep, in-laws." All right. I share that joke with you. It has nothing to do with the sermon, except it makes a reference to pigs. But in this story from Luke, please note the contrast and the movement of the story. The story gives us pigs and tombs and demons and nakedness, shame, isolation, and meaninglessness. And these negative aspects of life are resolved into returning home, returning to community, being clothed, restored dignity, belonging, and purpose. And we may say, yes, another miracle story that really has no place in our time and culture. And we can explain away the spiritual demonic claims with our contemporary understandings of mental illness. And we can explain away the supernatural healing with the power of counseling and empathy and medications. Our contemporary minds need to either explain away the unnatural and the uncomfortable parts of the story or do away with the story completely. Many people, for good reason, want to cast all religion into a herd of swine in hope that all religion runs off a cliff and drowns. And I get that. But I think such easy dismissal of such wisdom denies us insight and power for our lives. There are a lot of layers to this story, but the one place I want to focus is the reaction of the people when a good but unusual thing happens in their midst. The people came out to see what had happened. When they arrived, they found Jesus and the healed man together. They found the demons were gone. The man was wearing clothes, thank God. And the man was oriented to time and place and making sense. Something in their community had changed. That which they were used to and familiar with had changed, and they were afraid. The brokenness that was expected had been made whole, and they were seized with fear. We think at first hearing this is ridiculous. How could such a scary man made well be scarier and be a scarier situation than before? Does this say something about us? Does it say something about human nature? Healing and wholeness can be frightening, especially when you have built your whole life around a broken status quo. A person with mental illness can be hospitalized, get better, and then go home and become shattered all over again. A spouse or a life partner can travel for their job for years, have a job change that allows them to stay home, and the family is completely stressed. And here at Shadow Rock, we saw scores and scores of migrant people coming through our campus, staying the night. They were fed and bathed and clothed and made to feel safe. We called it Hope Station because while the world tried to take away their hope, our hospitality did all it could to restore their hope. All these good things happened. And yet, there was among us still some of us seized with fear. Bringing equality to women, people of color, LGBTQ and A persons sounds like a good thing. But for many people, they are still afraid. The name of the demon that keeps us afraid is Legion. It is evil that is embedded in unjust laws and systems and institutions. The first time I stood outside the Immigration and Custom Enforcement Office on Central Avenue, I felt intimidated by the size of the building, the security guards with their guns, the gates, the fences, the security cameras. I felt intimidated by the signs of no trespassing and the symbols of national power. The demons were legion. It is fear embedded in our own unredeemed and broken parts of ourselves that keep us from claiming the power we have as children of light and children of love. The name of this brokenness within each of us is legion. I speak metaphorically, of course, regardless of it being the devil trying to get in or trying to get out. What we see in this story is that the first step is to claim the power to create a new reality through our word. Reverend Norm from the Center of Spiritual Living in Colorado Springs visited with us last Sunday, and he said to a small group of us that when it comes to Shadow Rock, we can either keep living our old story about the past that we tell ourselves, or we can make a new life by telling a new story about who we are and where we are going. Jesus told a new story about this man. I can imagine him on the other side of the Lake of Galilee before he got into the boat, saying to the disciples, "We're going to go over to where all the Gentiles are. There's someone there I want you to meet." Already internally to himself and planting the seeds of wholeness and a new reality. And so, Jesus was speaking into existence a new story about this man and the world he lived in. Jesus was speaking into existence what was possible and then living in it as if it already was a reality. And then it became real. Some people understood, and some remained afraid. The second step for defeating the demon, whose name is Legion, is to know its name. This is not so unusual. Part of the power of a recovery program is to admit powerlessness and that your life is unmanageable or out of control. This is naming the demon, and such naming begins to empower a person to get well. Admitting there is a problem is essential to solving the problem. The man whose life was changed for the good, he wanted to live in that moment forever. And I get that. We have those moments when everything is right with us, right with our loved ones, and right with the world. The sun is shining, the breeze is perfect, and the lemonade is not too sweet nor too tart. I had a few times in my life when I was really sick, and after my body turned it around, I returned to wholeness. I felt really good, and I was aware that I felt good. I would love to stay at the feet of that moment forever, but I cannot. I get to return home and declare how much God has done for me. This man healed by Jesus was not so much turned away as he was turned loose. Return home and declare how much God has done for you. I hope he remembered. I hope he was able to keep his enthusiasm. I hope he did not let the fear of others shut him down. He was told by Jesus to declare to the Gentiles, inclusion, hear it, how much the God of the Jews had done for him. And the last sentence gives us an interesting twist. He was told to speak about God, but the last sentence says, So he went away proclaiming throughout the city how much Jesus had done for him. The writer leaves it to the reader and the hearer of the word about life to work this out. Go tell about God. But he told about Jesus. Is Jesus God? Or was this man's experience of the holy and healing and love, acceptance, most profound through his encounter with Jesus? The writer leaves it open because the writer knows that God shows up in the most unexpected places and in the most surprising ways. Perhaps God even showed up to a Gentile living among the dead, naked, totally outcast, no understanding of time, place, life, or his place in life. Did this through a poor rabbi carpenter from the other side of the lake. On our journey to the Spirit, of the journey of the Spirit to Easter, I hope Jesus shows up for all of us and helps us with our own demons. Amen.